Welcome back, folks, to another Business from the Bass Boat podcast powered by X2 Power. I'm your host, Adam Deakin. And guys, today we've got an awesome show lined up, one that we have been trying to schedule for a while. But this guy's tough to track down. He's always doing something. And I'm excited for today's show. It's been a long time coming because this brand represents some of the major brands in the fishing industry and the outdoor industry in general. And without further ado, let's bring in Ryan, the founder of Gunpowder Media. How's it going, man?
Excellent. How are you?
Dude, I'm doing well. Doing well. It's a sunny day here, which is nice in Colorado. Man, it's been pretty cold, but that's been fun to deer hunt and that kind of a thing. But how is it? You're in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, we're in Wisconsin, and man, it was we had our opening of gun season for deer this last weekend, which is kind of an iconic event here in Wisconsin. I've been doing it for 30 some years, and it was about as cold as I can remember it being for opening day. It was, I don't know what the temps actually weren't that bad, but the wind chill was just brutal. And so, yeah, you kind of had to be in a heated blind or bundled up. And but it was great. Good to be out in the woods.
Nice, man. Did you guys have some success?
It was kind of a rough one for us. We didn't. Yeah, we passed on some deer, got a couple for the freezer.
Nice.
But yeah, it was the deer movement was kind of weird for us this year, all the way around, all season. But
Gotcha.
you win some, you lose some. It was great to be out there.
Sure. And in Wisconsin, is there like just a shotgun season? Are you guys allowed to use centerfire rifle still, or was it one of those Midwestern states that had that change?
No, we had some zones in more suburban areas where it used to be shotgun only. They've now opened those up to rifles as well. So you can use rifles in the vast majority of the state for a gun season. Yeah.
Gotcha. Interesting that they came back on that, where they're like, hey, now we're good to use rifles again.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know why that was, and it's funny because I hunt a little bit in Iowa, and now some of those shotgun only areas are starting to allow the like straight wall casings. So you can use some kind of what I would call sort of lower power rifles in those shotgun only zones, which I've done. I've shot a 350 Legend for the last couple of years there, and it's a really cool round. But yeah, it is kind of interesting to see states walk that back. Yeah, I don't know. There's always that battle between like trying to keep people safe, but they also want to make it accessible and give people the best chance to succeed in the field. So maybe that's where that came from. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so when it's a straight wall cartridge, they were willing to do any cartridge where there's no neck down, right, to just get a higher velocity, that longer.
Yeah. So like, I guess the theory is that you're limiting the range, if not the effective killing range, and the danger of an errant shot hurting another hunter or striking a residence or whatever. I guess that's the theory, but it's interesting, man. Like, muzzle loaders used to be, shotguns are still, in my mind, pretty tough to get long range, but like muzzle loaders now, you can reach way out with those. These straight wall rifles, you can kill deer at a long distance with those. And so I guess states are just realizing that they have to make some of these changes because they need to keep participation up. Participation sometimes is can be negatively affected if people go field and don't have success. So yeah, I think it's a balancing act for a lot of these states and conservation.
Sure. Well, that's it. No, it's interesting you bring up the muzzleloader stuff. I've got a friend. We've both been getting pretty serious into the muzzleloader stuff. Just I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And in Colorado, so we're still iron sights on muzzleloader, so can't have a scope and that kind of a thing. But still, with that, like I don't know. I just feel like it's a lot less pressured seasons when it comes to muzzleloader, and I just love earlier seasons in general. I'm a big archery guy, and so it's kind of that middle ground. You might have that a little bit further distance for sure, and the ability to do some things with a muzzleloader. So it's been a recent conversation topic for a buddy and I for a long time.
Yeah, it's cool. I've shot them for a while. We get another week of gun season up here in Wisconsin with the muzzleloader, and other states where I've actually used in Iowa my muzzleloader as opposed to a shotgun during shotgun season, because while I'm limited to one round, I have way higher confidence in my range and accuracy with that over.
Gotcha. Yeah, cool, man. Cool. Yeah. Well, dude, thanks for coming on and making this happen.
Yeah, of course.
You and I had hung out a little bit at ICAST this year.
Yeah,
Obviously, Bailey, partner on the Serious Angler podcast, and he's been a part of your team for a while now at Gunpowder.
yeah.
And enjoyed hanging out with you and getting to hear everything from what you guys do there, getting a little insight from that perspective. But how are things going, man? Is this kind of like what type of is this like your busy season? Is this kind of things are a little bit slower? What does December look like for the Gunpowder crew?
Yeah, it's interesting. It feels like there's never a slow time for us, but there's just different peaks of the kind of activity or the kind of work that we're doing. So summer's super busy with ICAST, with other trade shows, consumer events. Lots of the tournaments trails are firing, and so we support those for a lot of our clients. December, late in the year like this, it tends to be planning. So,
Okay.
we work closely with our clients to, I guess in some cases, even identify budgets, but either that or work with budgets that are allocated for marketing efforts and start to determine where do we spend the money? What's the best path forward? Those are the things that we work on in the end of the year. And then we also work with a few clients in the hunting industry and
Mhm.
shooting industry. And so a lot of those trade shows tend to be in the winter months. And so we're preparing for those. So those are January, SHOT Show,
Sure.
some of those other events that we support on that side of the business. But yeah, it's a lot of planning. A lot of people kind of tend to in December sort of like wind down their year. We still go pretty hard, and then that planning piece just is another layer. But I guess from the standpoint of like being out on the road and grinding and doing all that stuff that we do on behalf of our clients, that tends to slow a little bit in the winter months.
Sure. Sure. Okay. That makes sense. It's kind of cool to me, just with kind of my background in farm and ranch real estate and then the hunting and fishing industry and everything, like all the different trade shows, SHOT Show and Dallas Safari and all these different things. It's interesting that like the hunting shows, like you said, and they still have some fishing aspects in some of the winter shows, but you have like that season that you're right. Like it's like
Yeah,
January is just show season for all the hunting and
totally.
shooting stuff. And then it just flips. And then you have,
Yeah,
the classic and everything on the fishing side.
yeah, yeah. It's very, and it does create, uh, it creates these like windows of time in the business where it's like we really focus on, and obviously like the hunting side of the business, there's only, in North America, there's a primary hunting season, which tends to be in the fall.
Mhm.
In particular, like in the bass world, there's kind of a season that's sort of predicated by tournaments. Their trails kind of tend to line up with the prime times to bass fish throughout the country when the weather's nice. Obviously, like you live in here in Wisconsin, there's certain months of the year where you can't even put a boat on the water. So there's the seasonality of our business, which is interesting. It also like keeps us it keeps us on a little bit of a calendar, which is kind of nice. It's got some predictability to it. And, once you get into this world and start working in the outdoors, it's sort of like you kind of know what's coming to a degree, which is interesting.
Sure. Very cool. Well, I guess let's get into we'll get into the story of Gunpowder and how it was all started. But first, how would you describe Gunpowder to folks that maybe don't know what it is and how kind of maybe some of this stuff works in the industry?
Yeah. So I've been doing this agency business for 20 some years, and it's, I think it's one of the hardest things to describe to people that aren't really familiar with the marketing side of or marketing in general. And I remember my late grandpa like never really did quite figure out what it was that I did. Uh,
Yeah.
and
You go to parties and people are like, "So
yeah,
what does that guy do again?" And you're like,
yeah. Well, it's just that it's like and especially because the agency world or marketing has changed so dramatically. It's like you used to be able to tell people, "Hey, I work at an ad agency."
"Mhm,
And 20 years ago, it was like, okay, I get it. You make TV commercials and print ads because, that's how the world learns about new products and brands. It's become so much more complex today that, really what we are, Adam, I guess, is like, we're a communications and marketing agency.
okay,
So we basically become an extension of our clients' marketing team. So we help our clients have commercial success by driving marketing communications efforts that help them differentiate themselves, differentiate their products, help consumers understand the benefits, and hopefully lead to purchase. So we support our clients in lots of ways. It's as I mentioned, like marketing and communications, has changed a lot, even in the time I've been in the business, where there are so many more ways that consumers interact with brands, and it's much more engagement than it is just a brand talking to people. And so I think what we've done as an agency is try to position ourselves as the kind of partner that clients can turn to say, listen, we understand the categories you're in. We understand the consumers. We understand their behavior. We have strong business acumen when it comes to like understanding the financials of the fishing world, from boats and motors all the way down to fishing tackle. And so we kind of help our clients connect the dots between the products they're making, the business they're trying to grow, and helping consumers, in the case of the fishing world, have more success on the water. So if we can be the connective tissue between those two things, then consumers win by getting access to better fishing products, be more well-educated on how to use them, and our clients sell more stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a huge point just on the consumer side too. Especially when we're talking, like you guys represent Johnson Outdoors, and we're talking Minn Kota and Humminbird, and
Yep.
and those, especially when you're talking graphs and electronics and stuff, I feel like there's always a lack of understanding with people when it comes to technology, and having that ability to showcase of how this stuff actually works, and better communication between that brand and the consumer on maybe a new technology that's coming out within that brand. And so there's just so much that goes into that in my eyes. And it's like you said, I was thinking, okay, when you said how it's going to be hard to answer exactly but it's like, there's so many different aspects that go into that it's hard to almost explain. And it's probably very specific to each brand too, on what they want, and working with their marketing folks on their end, because some maybe do a lot of internal marketing stuff, and then maybe you're taking the lead on other ones.
Yeah, totally. Every client's different, and that's kind of what I think is interesting about the business, is we don't really play a singular role with any client. So for some, we would be defined as like their public relations agency, where we're trying to get earned media coverage for our clients. So, you read a piece about, for example, in Fisherman Magazine, around how to use forward-facing sonar, or how to use, different technologies to, in a specific fishing application. Mm-hmm. We'll work very closely with the media on like the writer on. We'll take them out on the water. We'll educate them. We'll spend time with them in a boat, educating them so that they can educate the reader. In other cases, we're actually creating that content, or helping our clients create that content so they can push it out through their channels. In other cases, we're working with other production partners who have more, advanced production capabilities. So it's kind of we've got to be really nimble in terms of how we think and work. And it really, because each of our clients, we do have a different role based on who they have internally. And, some clients have big marketing teams, but they're also giant companies that need some significant support from outside partners to help fill in the gaps, or to bring our areas of expertise and our outside counsel to them. And others, we're kind of like literally an outsourced marketing department, where they have very, very small teams, and it's like, it's on our shoulders, from soup to nuts. So, yeah.
That's cool, man. I love kind of tailored insight there, like as far as setting that up to that specific brand. And I mean, you guys work with just a list of looking stuff. I mean, like dream brands in my eyes. Like we're talking top tier when it comes to the outdoor industry. And I think I just saw today, I think on social media, you guys are working with Sitka.
Yeah. We just started that relationship beginning of the month. So yeah.
Wow. Huge, man. That is incredible.
Wild. It's wild. Yeah. Honestly, man, I pinch myself looking at our client roster. I grew up fishing and hunting, and I've been in the agency business for a long time, and I've worked on everything from, Miller Brewing to Pizza Hut to Rayovac batteries to, digital, you name it, healthcare, digital companies. And what I realized over my career is that I do my best work, and I think people do their best work when they're involved with something they care about.
100%.
So whether it's something that moves you, whether it's something that just an industry that fascinates you, whether it's something that's a personal passion or connected to something that is, a part of your life or lifestyle or your faith or whatever. I mean, honestly, like it doesn't have to be about it doesn't have to be about your personal interests, but in this case it is. And in this case, I didn't necessarily set out to start Gunpowder to be a playground for my personal interests. Instead, I felt like there was an opportunity with these lifestyle brands to bring a level of expertise that I had developed and other people that I work with have developed over their courses of their career, to bring that level of sophistication and marketing knowledge and savvy and experience to brands that we care about. And I just always thought how that could be amazingly powerful. And then when you start doing it and you start having success, and then you look back 7 years later and you're like, man, honestly, if I could have 7 years ago said, pick a dream roster of clients, we got a ton of them on the list, and that's pretty amazing. Yeah,
dude, that's awesome. So I want to get into that creation and that story there. I guess to start, so like you said, you've been in the agency world a really long time, and 20 years ago, like when we're talking, I mean, how has the landscape as a whole changed just from, I mean, I'd imagine there's a ton of different things, but like overall, has your what has changed in the last 20 years? Are we in, I guess uncharted waters right now? Is everything completely different than it was 20 years ago? Does it keep you on your toes? What does stuff look like?
Yeah, it's definitely, it has changed, of course, like any industry or category. But I think what's striking to me is how little control brands truly have of their brand today versus what they had 20 years ago. And it's
really
what I mean. Yeah, because, it used to be where, the marketing and communications was very one-sided. It was like the only opportunity that consumers really had to talk about a brand was word of mouth, right? So you just didn't have the platforms for interpersonal communication that you have today, where somebody who had a negative experience or a positive experience or wanted to recommend something, it had to happen more truly virally, where you call up your brother and hey, did you try this lure? Yeah, I tried that lure. And next thing you know, it's like you find these little things. Now it's like these things can blow up so quickly. And consumers have a lot of power, for better or worse. And even outside of interpersonal communication, the ability for consumers to have an actual relationship with a brand is way more powerful. It used to be you could go see somebody that worked for the company at a consumer show. You could call customer service, or maybe later on email customer service and get a reaction. But those are very one-on-one, insulated and not visible relationships. Now, you can call it a brand in a million ways, right? There's highly visible reviews of products. There are ways to engage with brands on social media. We see it all the time with our clients. Something comes out, we track the conversation, we read the good, the bad. People come to the brand and express their opinion directly, and navigating all that. It's become more about understanding and building and fostering relationships as opposed to just being a mouthpiece. And that's the biggest change over these years that I've been doing this and I've always been, my discipline that I've grew up in largely was in communications or PR. I've always loved brand strategy and been involved with that to a great extent with a lot of really great clients. But I believe in PR as earned media is one of the most important elements of a brand's voice in the world. And I still think it is today, because if you can come out and you can create a story that other people want to tell on your behalf because it's interesting and powerful enough, then I think it sort of passes the sniff test of what consumers will talk about and anglers will talk about, as opposed to just, it used to be you create a TV spot, you push it, you pay money to push it out into the world, and you look at your sales and you say, good or bad, did our marketing work? We don't really know. Now we can measure things like consumer sentiment. We can measure engagement. We can understand what consumers think is cool because we can track all that. And it allows us to be better at our jobs, smarter at what we do. And if you're humble enough to like take that feedback and not discount it and say, hey, these people, they have a voice and we understand and we want to learn from what people think is cool, what isn't, what products resonate and what don't. It can make us, I think what's cool about it is it makes us way, way better at our jobs.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the two things there, I mean, I think the data and analytics side of stuff has really excited me here lately. And there's so many times where it's like, I have a feeling that's this way. And this is how, for instance, on the podcast, we should release it at this time of this episode in that kind of situation. And then it's like, well, the numbers say differently. And I'm humble enough to say, all right, I was wrong. I had the wrong feeling about this, and take that data, and you can learn so much. I mean, data doesn't lie most of the time if it's good data. And so I've had a big interest in that, and I think that is a huge player in all aspects of life now, especially with these lifestyle brands. And when you say earned media, I guess, what do you mean there for folks and myself? Just what does that exactly mean?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's so like, whether it's a digital outlet or a print magazine, basically, if you look at kind of traditional news outlets where you would, so you might read Bassmaster magazine, or you may subscribe to different email newsletters like Bass Blaster. You might get In Fisherman. You might get Game and Fish. These news outlets, digital, print, some broadcast, even some podcasts, like the ability to get editorial coverage is for on behalf of your brand is a goal of many companies, right? Because you might launch a new lure and you might put a bunch of money behind paid advertising. So you're going to go create 15-second pre-roll spot. You're going to create a print ad. You're going to make digital banner ads, and you're going to put paid dollars. So you place those things in the media with paid dollars. Earned media is where we're saying we don't want to pay for the coverage. We want to earn that coverage. So we would so there's a lot of ways to do that. We have teams that spend a lot of time just managing and fostering relationships with influential writers and editors,
media outlets.
Yep. And we're calling them up and saying, hey, what are you working on? And there's like, hey, we've got a story coming up about pre-spawn bass lures. And we're trying to figure out like an angle. Hey, cool. Listen, we got this flat-sided crankbait that is like, here's the stats on it here. We'll let you talk to the product guy. We'll introduce you to one of our anglers who helped design it or fishes it a lot. You can learn from them. So we're connecting the dots. And so ultimately this story comes out and it's like, hey, here's 5 great pre-spawn baits for bass to fish this spring. And our goal is to try to get our clients' product in there and in a favorable light and in a way that allows consumers to read that article, have the confidence to buy it, and information on how to go use it so they find success. So that's the kind of what we call earned media coverage, that we didn't pay any money to the outlet to cover that. We just did the hard work of working with that reporter or writer to give them story angles to include our client's product in the mix.
I see. That's really cool. So that's the connective tissue that you're talking about. I mean, you guys are the connector when it comes to all that. And I mean, I think it goes a long way, like you're saying, from the consumer's perspective, that third party releasing that product, those product details, and getting that ability to look at it from a different lens rather than just coming from the brand itself.
Yeah, yes. And a lot of these outlets are still incredibly influential. It's sort of fractured a little bit because it used to be, rewind even, 5 years ago, there were a lot more print magazines titles out there.
Sure.
Like Field and Stream, Outdoor Life, two of the most iconic titles in outdoor publishing are now digital only. So we can still work with them. We still get placement within their, we still work to get earned media coverage within those outlets, but it's 100% online.
Sure.
And so the landscape has changed in terms of the available media outlets. There's a lot more, kind of smaller groups that are kind of becoming their own little media outlets. And I mean, honestly, Adam, like podcasts are one of them, right? Like, one of the things that we work to do is, you guys have your paid sponsors, right? Like you got X2 is sponsoring to be a part of your program, and Omni and Hobie and all these. You also, we would come to you guys and say, hey, would you be willing to have, Bobby Lane on your show? If you are, that's great. We'll hook you up. And so like you get access to a great angler, but we'll have Bobby, we'll tell Bobby, hey, we just would love for you to be able to talk about, max scent, using Berkeley max scent for largemouth fishing.
Sure.
Work that into the show. So now it's like, you guys get the benefit of a great guest, timely guest. We get the benefit of somebody helping deliver some of the brand stories or product stories that are important to us. So,
So you're working with those ambassadors, those brand ambassadors that are they're brought on by that brand to display the product. And again, being the connective tissue of taking that, I guess, pressure off the brand of having to deal with maybe necessarily that ambassador and exactly figure all this stuff out. And it's like, hey, we're pros at this. We're gonna make sure we're all on the same page. They're gonna go on and do the show, but we're gonna bring up this product here. So that's
totally
really cool, man. It's cool how that all works, and it's good to get it from the source, because I think that, like you said, for folks like myself who are not in that industry at all, the agency industry, it's always like, okay, Bailey's going on these cool trips, going to these places. But what are you doing? Are you just going fishing? Like, and it's cool to see how it all works. And it's my gears are turning when Bailey tells me a story about such and such angler. It's like, okay, that makes sense what you're doing there.
Yeah, and listen, at Bailey's a great example of, like, I think the way that this industry works well, and the way that our agency works well, is Bailey's a guy who's got his own vibe going, right? He's got the Serious Angler thing that you guys got going on. He's a successful kayak tournament angler. He's a driven young guy who's he lives this. This is what he wants to center his life around. And honestly, when I was a younger guy, I didn't really have the right agency or place to go find that. And I just was like, man, I'm going to go try to get great experience. And eventually I'm going to apply my personal passion to this. But, we were fortunate enough to connect with Bailey early on in his career. But he's the kind of guy that we can send on a trip with media. And, when they start talking fishing, he can have a relevant conversation, right? He's not a PR shill. He's not just there to, it's not a boondoggle. He's working hard on those trips. And I say that, knowing that it's a lot of fun for him. And I've always loved doing those media trips, because we're taking people on the water. We're putting them in the boat with our pros or our product developers from our client companies. And we're, again, connecting the dots, but we're also getting time in the boat with these guys to learn from them, to hear from them, to spend time talking about fishing, which we all love. And so it's he has earned the right to go on those trips because he knows the space. He works his ass off in advance of these trips to go and make sure that they're a success in terms of all the logistics and everything. And then when we're there, the people on our team are truly working to help media get great content to come out of these things. So that's kind of the goal, is we want our media to come out of there with a great story to tell. And if they prioritize video content, that we're getting them great video. And so these events are long days, incredibly hard work, but also way more fun than sitting in the office. So, we all kind of win if those events go well.
100%. Cool. No, it's neat how it seems to all come together. And like you said, it's cool that you had the vision at one point. You said, "Hey, I want to get good at this agency stuff," and then eventually tied into my passions in the outdoor world. So as you're working your way through your career, like you said, some of those brands you worked for, everyone knows about what they are, not necessarily all in at all in the outdoor industry. Um, when did you feel like it was the proper time? I mean, so 2015 is when Gunpowder started. Why did you feel like, hey, I'm ready to make this step and do my thing, number one, and number two, with my passions and these lifestyle brands?
Yeah, I think I'd been part of another business where I'd come on pretty early in the life cycle of this other agency. Worked with an incredibly talented group of people. Worked on some amazing brands and built a business that I look back on really fondly as like, man, one of the like really high points of my career. And but we had sold the company a couple times,
Mm,
and we kind of had become sort of this agency that we had sold against. Like we were always nimble and agile, and we wanted to push our clients, and we kind of became like a little bit, I don't know, we kind of became this bigger agency that had a lot of
mm,
process, and it just, there was nothing wrong with it. That agency still exists and does great work. It's just, I realized that I thrive in a smaller environment where I can like really. I'm not forced into a single role. I can wear a lot of hats. I can be, I can kind of like flex with our clients. And anyway, it's just kind of like it was a good time in my life to just go do something new. And
mm.
I decided, I always had the dream of starting my own company. And, it was like, there was really no impetus for it other than just the timing felt right on my side. And, I was able to kind of like walk away from that business in a good place and leave my team there in a good place. Probably the biggest impetus for me to do it, though, honestly,
Mhm.
was what I was seeing in the market, which was we had worked with a few brands in the outdoor space. So one of
Okay.
the clients that we had at my old agency was GoPro.
Sure.
And we handled a lot of their like outdoor stuff. Like we kind of were in charge of all their like hunting and fishing and more outdoorsy pursuits as opposed to like surfing and snow sports.
Sure.
And so I got to kind of get a little bit more embedded in the outdoors industry, working with them. We were also working with Cabela's.
Oh, cool.
And so we had a couple outdoors clients that I had like gone out and pursued at my other agency because I wanted to work in the category.
Yeah.
And then in working with them, I realized, man, there just did not appear to be any really great agencies in that enthusiast lifestyle space. Where
Ah,
I'm talking like people that are, when you're talking about brands that are appealing to people that have outdoor passions and interests, or people that just are living like in that like sports outdoors world. I just didn't see a lot of great agencies. I saw a lot of agencies that knew those categories really well, but weren't really prepared for the changing landscape of media, weren't really like world-class marketers in that space. And I felt, man, like if we could compile a team and
mhm.
go into this space, which is fun to work in and has a lot of opportunity, this could be even a better chapter than the really great one I was exiting. And so, well, I was actually fortunate enough to kind of keep a little relationship with GoPro, and they were one of our first clients, and we just did a few projects with them. And so it was like me and a guy that I kind of started the business with, who's no longer part of the business. Just we kind of went separate ways, but we started it with like no clients, no revenue, but we're like, listen, we got an idea. I think we've got the kind of connections and certainly like a resume and experience that would be of interest to at
Sure.
least get some doors open.
Mhm.
So we went for it.
That's awesome, man. I love that's a big reason why I started this podcast is stories like that where folks had that passion and that drive, and in your case, the experience to jump in and do something
Yeah.
on their own terms and something that they wanted to build something special. And like you said, I mean, just a list of the brands just in the fishing industry. I mean, Johnson Outdoors, Pure Fishing, X2 Power, uh, Academy. Like, I mean, big time players in this industry. And then the whole hunting side,
Yeah.
really, really cool to me. What you guys have done in such a short time. I mean, you're what, 7 years into this now?
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like a lifetime in some ways. In other ways, it feels like I think it feels like a long time, actually. I used to say it felt like a short, you know, how kind of some things can feel like a lifetime, but also like it seems like yesterday.
Yeah.
It now feels like this is my life, you know, like I still remember the other stuff, but this is just, it's been such a labor of love. And we've had so many chapters in this like little adventure that's been, but man, it's like, I think about, we still do some work with GoPro, world's largest camera company. We work with Thor Industries. We're the agency of record for them. They're the world's largest RV company. They own Airstream and Jayco and Keystone. World's largest fishing company, you know, big marine electronics company, a giant retailer. And it's like sometimes, you know, and there's no way that we could have all these things if we hadn't built the team here that we have. Like you know, when you start a business, especially an agency like this, you're trading on your past experience and you're trading on your own sort of equity that you've built. And that was like the first couple of years where like the chapter where you're like, man, you're working your network and it's, hey, people are coming to work with Gunpowder. And I don't say this like to be egotistical. They're coming there because it's like, well, we've worked with Ryan and we'll trust that Ryan's building something cool. And that gets you, you know, that gets you a little ways.
Open the door.
Yep. And it gets you like a base, and it got us a base, and it got us a starting point. And then it was like, you know, I gotta surround myself with great people. Cause I don't want to do it all. And B, I don't know how to do it all. And I love working with great people that inspire and motivate and amaze me.
Yeah.
And so we, you know, luckily have built that team, you know, and that's the real secret to this whole deal is like, you know, there is, and honestly, like why I love what we do and why we've been successful is, yes, we work in categories we love, and that makes it easier to come to work every day. And, you know, we've had success, you know, financially and just from a business growth standpoint, which is great. But this business, the only thing we have are the people that walk through the door, or, you know, the hypothetical, we work remote a lot. So like, but it's our people. The agency business is weird in that we don't have any intellectual property. We don't really have it. You know, we don't have like machinery or equipment. It's human capital. That's what we have. Smart, passionate people who care deeply about being successful and who want to grow. So, and it's like, man, if you find the right combination of people, it can be really magical. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. It's kind of what we found. We're in like this amazing place right now where we've built this team that I never, you know, I mean, we've just never had a team like this at Gunpowder. We've grown a lot, which is interesting because a lot of times when you grow, you tend to add people, but you wonder if they're the right ones because you're growing quickly, right? You just
need people. Yeah.
But man, we've been very fortunate. We've been very deliberate about hiring and, you know, made sure that we try to find the right people and worked really hard to hire. And thankfully, outside of Bailey, who's questionable.
Yeah, let's knock him down a little.
Yeah, exactly.
We gave him a big head earlier. Let's drop that off.
Yeah, we've been building him up. He's not that smart. He's a very passionate kid. He's not that smart. He's also, I think, overrated as an angler. I'm just gonna go.
There we go.
No, he's amazing. That kid is he's on a run with fishing, and I love it, man. I used to fish tournaments, and it was such a fun. I loved it, and I just, you know, regionally here in Wisconsin, it was just team tournaments, but it was really fun for me. Like just a great way to force yourself to go out and fish and learn. And I see Bailey doing it as a young guy. Like you just learn so much. And he's fishing at a higher level than I ever was. But it's just cool the experience that he's getting. But yeah, but again, going back to the main theme of this part of the segment, he's overrated as a fisherman.
Yep, overrated. He's in a kayak. I mean, he could fall out of it at any time.
Yeah.
He's a Tupperware warrior. Now,
exactly. Yeah, all those things. Yeah, go on, keep going.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I think it's cool. The team atmosphere to me. really is something that Bailey talks highly about with you guys, and just how Gunpowder works. It seems like a young team in some aspects that is just firing on all cylinders, going and into these brands, and are passionate about it. I mean, these guys, like Bailey himself, is really passionate in this industry.
Yeah.
At this point, I mean, you started, like you said, with the other guy. There was two of you. How many folks are working for Gunpowder today as we sit in 2022?
I think we have 28 full-time employees.
Wow.
And we have a couple kind of almost full-time interns. And then we have probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 near full-time contractors, just people that are, kind of out doing their own thing, but we work with really closely and regularly.
Sure.
So yeah, it's, I mean, I think we've doubled in size in like the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a lot of people. It's pretty wild when you actually just say the number out loud.
No joke. In just a couple of year span. That's fantastic. What are your thoughts, I guess, on the independent contractor versus full-time employee? Do you see that, like, in today's landscape, that there's a shift going on there? I mean, where does that stand in your head?
It's really funny, man. When I first started in this business, it was like every client would want to know, when you start working with them, who's the team? And they wanted like this very hierarchical team to exist. And, and even like a creative team, we do a lot of we make, we build websites. Our clients trust us with big creative projects. Like we do all of Berkeley's big creative projects, their TV spots, print ads, everything. And like, it used to be, if you're going to work with a client, the caliber of Pure Fishing, they would be like, we want to know who's the creative director, who's the, art director, who's the writer. I want to know the whole team, and I want to know who my account person is. And it was very, the client, and they wanted to meet with them. And it was like, we want to come to your office, and it better be fancy, and we need to go out for big steak. It was just a very different relationship. And a lot of those agency relationships were based on these sort of like this very, and I even see it on the client side, where there was a very like hierarchical, as VP of marketing, marketing director, brand manager, is like siloed. And now it's just different, honestly. Like clients prioritize, especially honestly, maybe we sort of self-select the clients we work. They prioritize great work. They don't give a shit where it comes from or who's working on it, as long as like they're getting the kind of work that they expect and have a relationship with the people that is, mutually respectful and mutually beneficial, right? So like going back to your question more directly about the independent contractors, I mean, there are times when we work with independent contractors, we don't hide anything from our clients, but like our clients don't care who's an independent contractor, who's a full-time employee. This dude's on the call. He's brilliant. We're getting results. Let's go. They don't worry about the nuances of how. And so what's cool about that is it makes it easy for us to bring in the right people at the right time. Instead of like, man, I don't know, we don't really have an expert in this one particular area. We've got those people on our bench, or we can go find them, and we don't have to hire them full time. We don't have to bring on a big expensive salary. So our clients don't have to pay for people they don't need, but they get expertise when they need it. And like our creative team is pretty small, but we've got an amazing bench of people that we work with really, really closely around the country. And so like, if we need a writer that can write with some attitude and be a badass, we got the guy. Yeah. If we need somebody that can be more technical and nuanced and really needs to understand like fishing electronics, we've got somebody that can help us with that. And so, I mean, I do think that the world has made it become easier for independent contractors to succeed in this space. And we try to find a good balance, because there is a benefit to having people internally in our, really, really sharing our vision, contributing to our culture. But there's times, and we've probably had I know for sure 3 people that are senior people at Gunpowder that started with us as independent contractors.
Wow. Cool.
2 of them happen to be people that were like, they were early, young women who were new moms who were like, man, I need to take a step back to, keep my career going. but also take time with my kid. And then eventually they're like, all right, we got this motherhood thing down, and like might continue to have more kids, but like I want to get back full time into the workforce. And so the fact that we were willing to work with them as an independent contractor and like part time and give them that opportunity gave us access to them. And now they're literally people that are leading our business. So
wow.
So it benefits everybody, man. I don't really think there should be a playbook for how you work, even like how we think about remote work.
Mm-hmm.
And we have people that are here in Wisconsin, but don't even come into the office every day. We have people like Bailey who live in Buffalo, New York. And, we try to see him as much as we can, but also know that he's over there doing his job and we're connected and via technology. And, we don't care about how the work gets done as long as, everybody's jamming and the work gets done and everybody's happy. And, clients, employees, the business, as long as everybody's benefiting, we're good with it.
Yeah, no, well, I think that's a very new age thinking. And I think that there's a lot of benefit to it. And it's a lot of how my thought process is, and just hearing different business owners talk about their thought processes there. And I think a big point too, with exactly what you said with the independent contractor stuff, it's a good way in my eyes too, to feel out that individual and see some of that stuff before, like you said, making that commitment and bringing on a salary and benefits and all this stuff. And then if that relationship's there, it's like, let's move into this full time and make this a thing together.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love it. I love that idea of being able to like work with somebody part-time. And then, to your point, if it grows into something bigger, fantastic. If it doesn't, that's fine too. But it's the world that we live in now, like where we're all connected via technology, but the good is great. The one thing that I will say is that there are parts of this business that really benefit from being together.
Mm-hmm.
Being in person. The good news is that we actually have a lot of reasons to do that over the course of the year. We have client events, we have meetings at our client's office. We prioritize getting people here occasionally from remote locations, and we have trade shows, media events. So like, we don't always all come together as an agency, but there's a lot of time that we spend together in person. And, you just get to know people better. You get to build a better rapport if you do that. And thankfully we work in an industry where like fishing and hunting and all these things that we are promoting happen in real life.
Yeah.
And so we prioritize like, getting together as people and not just like living behind a screen all the time.
Yeah. I think that's the side of it too. That I think you need to keep top of mind. And it's like you said, it's a good situation for you guys with all your events, but I agree. Like that's the one, I guess, downside to kind of this new age world of like, well, if you're always remote, I think about just, I'm a very social person in general. And those like interactions in person to me, I really need, not just necessarily on a podcast like this, but like I enjoy those conversations. I feel like some of our best thinking and stuff happens in those group settings.
Totally.
With that. So I like it, man. I think it's a good, and it's clearly working for you guys. And I like the mix of everything that you guys have going.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. We when you think about our business, it's like, again, going back to the people side of it. Mm-hmm. And so, thinking about like the context of like, the other businesses that, people that you've had on your podcast, like most of them are brands or businesses that make something, right? Like
a product,
a rod company. Like it's very clear what they're selling. We're selling fishing rods. Obviously they're also selling the relationship with the brand. They're selling their customer service, their warranty. They're selling their experience when you go to try to buy it from them, whether it's on their own website or retail, their packaging. There's a lot of things they're selling, but ultimately it's a tangible thing, fishing rod. Mm-hmm. We're selling people's talents, and
your assets are your people.
Yeah. It's a weird thing. Like it's a wild deal. But it gives me a ton of clarity because, I always work really hard to make sure that our people are feeling motivated and driven and happy and fulfilled, because that's like keeping your manufacturing line up and running. Right. And I don't mean it to sound that callous, but it's just like,
I understand.
It's our people are our everything. We don't have we don't have a lot of like intellectual property. We just have great people busting their ass and supporting clients that they care about. So, anyway, it's a wild business, man. I've been doing it for a long time, and I still am learning every day, and which makes it fun and extra fun when you got people like Bailey that are coming up, doing their own, on their own curve of learning, and you're able to help kind of support that. It's pretty fun.
Heck yeah. Cool. Well, the last thing I want to get into today was just to get your thoughts. Let's see, a couple of weeks ago, I had a show with Pete Glusick of Bass University, and it was really cool. He broke down how he started Bass University, and it all came about during the 2008 recession. And I mean, he said every call he was getting, call after call, in a 2-week span, he lost 90% of his sponsor dollars.
Oh yeah, I saw this actually. Yeah,
that's overnight. Just incredible, right? Like to hear, like, and that's he's like, man, I need to take this, my financial into my own hands to some extent and be on this side of it. So that's what he did. But we're kind of in this looming situation right now economically and all this stuff, and you're directly talking to these companies about their marketing budgets and everything. And going into 2023, do you feel as an industry in a whole, is there going to be some reduction there? Do you feel like most people are like, man, we're killing it, we're going to keep rolling? What's kind of your take on that, I guess, at this stage?
Yeah, I think people are going to tighten up. I think brands are going to look at their business. I mean, there's a lot of weird factors at play here. There's, COVID created a ton of, we all know that COVID created a ton of interest and participation in outdoor activities. Fishing is chief among them. So, which is great. Created more anglers. I think we haven't seen that giant cliff event where there's a huge drop off in participation. So some of them are hanging out. Some of them are probably moving up in terms of their interest. I think we anecdotally see that. We see that even in sales, but there's been all these complicating factors that have happened around the pandemic and some economic stuff beyond that. That's, all kind of leading towards a really interesting time period in the outdoors in general and in fishing. And I think there will be some companies that will tighten up more than others during this time. I think, each business has got its own sort of like trajectory, but I do think industry wide, we'll see a little bit of a reduction in spending from a marketing standpoint. My prediction is that it will be short-lived. My prediction is that it won't be like a giant drop-off. Fishing as an activity tends to actually do well in a recession because it's something that people can do closer to home. It doesn't require extravagant travel. It's not in and of itself costly. Some of the businesses that will feel it more than others are like the bigger ticket stuff, like boats and motors, and even maybe like marine electronics, things like that, where it's like, but even surprisingly in recessions, people spend money on fishing, and they'll even spend money on higher ticket aftermarket things, because rather than buy a new boat, they might buy some new stuff for their boat, right? Or rather than buy new stuff for their boat, they might buy some new rods so they just kind of trade down. But I do think it'll be interesting, and I've been in this business a long time, and even throughout my career, off and on in the outdoors business, I've worked for boating companies and motor companies and different outdoor categories over the course of the year. So I've seen these cycles, and nothing lasts forever. Things ebb and flow. And the companies that are smart, the companies that understand this is a long game, are the ones that, will succeed through these times and come out of it maybe even stronger. So I was super interested to watch how things unfolded through the pandemic, because there were companies that reacted very differently. Some that were like, really clutching at their purse strings and worried about what happened, and others that were like, hey, like, this is a golden opportunity when people are looking at our category. And even though our business is disrupted in a major, major way, we need to lean forward, establish that we're leaders, own the conversation around this new crop of people coming into the sport. And I think those businesses benefited from that. So, going into this recession time, which I think is, either here or likely,
right.
I think the brands that win will be responsible. They won't just be cavalier with their dollars, but they'll also understand, like, hey, this is an opportunity. When other people cut back, if we just lean forward a little bit, we could benefit in the long run from this stuff. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. That story that Pete told, by the way, was amazing. And, he's the kind of guy that you look at, I love entrepreneurial stories, and hearing that one, that was super cool. A guy that just looked at it and said, man, this is where things are going. And, he could have been down in the dumps or gone and chased another career, but, to build what he's built. I haven't spent a lot of time with Pete, but I was with him on a media trip. Hilarious guy, super fun. And that's the kind of stuff that, like, you just love to see in an industry like this. There's people that take their passion for it, but they don't just say, hey, I've got a passion. They find a niche and they lean into it, and they take some risk and build something amazing. It's cool.
Yeah. I the same way. Love those stories. And that's just, I think that's a cool thing to talk about, are people who go that route, other than, like you said, just turning away from it or that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Taking the bull by the horns, man, and making it happen.
Totally.
It's cool. It's cool. And it's what you've done with Gunpowder and everything there, man. So I'm excited, like you said, to see how kind of things end up with brands. It's interesting, like you said, because I've heard that stat too, or just talking about how the fishing does well through a recession because it's something that's close to home, still an activity that's in that light. And I was talking to a real estate guy that's a big investor in both single family homes, but then also in storage units.
Yep.
And during the last recession, my thoughts, like, okay, well, where are you going to see, are people going to let their stuff go or their home go necessarily? And he had way more vacancies on the home side than he did on the storage unit side.
Yeah.
People love their stuff, man. They love passionate outdoorsmen. It's like whatever it may be, people want to hold on to their thing. So that's kind of one of those last things. It seems.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and that's what I love is, we say that we use this term all the time. It's like, when you're working in like the CPG space, and I've worked there, I worked on Oscar Mayer. It's like, we did a lot of cool things to make people love that brand even more than they maybe already did. Yeah. But it was like, at the end of the day, it's like somebody's going to the store, they're going to choose, they go to the store because they have to eat, and they're going to choose from a few brands of hot dogs. And it's like, you can build some emotion into that transaction, but it's just very different than what we're working on today, which is we support brands that play for share of heart, not just share of wallet, is what we say. Like you're trying to connect with people in a more meaningful way. And it's like, we always talk about this idea that it's not just about like, hey, are we going to get somebody to think about buying a Humminbird locator versus a Garmin? Yeah. Like, we want to compete in our category, but we have to go one level deeper and think about that guy's also that might buy that Humminbird Mega Live. He's like, man, I could do that, or I could go on an elk trip this year. Right. And it's like, that's the decisions that people are making. And in a recession, even more so, because their disposable income decreases, inflation, all the stuff we're facing. It's not that people are going to stop fishing or hunting. They're just going to be more choiceful about it. They may take that elk trip because it's, going to be the last one they can do with their dad. How do you fight that battle, right? You got to make it more compelling than that. Or, I'm going to either buy a Mega Live, or I'm going to like put a little more money into buying a hot tub for the family. It's like, those are the choices that people make. They're not, and it's like, we got to connect more deeply than just like a transaction. We've got to be more meaningful than just, hey, you're going to choose one of these things, choose this for these features. And that's why we work super hard to establish relationships with influencers and build more amazing, interesting, creative, and to tell deeper stories than just, product features. But that's what makes it fun, man. And that's why it's like every day, we get to go work in categories we like and like, come up with ideas that make people care more. And that's just way more fun than,
side by side comparison. Yeah. I like that thought process. It's like, really, we're competing for, like you said, recreation, dollars that you're gonna, your excess income dollars that you're gonna spend on this stuff, and
Yep.
more of that feel to it rather than just, two side by side units and comparing the
Yeah.
qualities.
Totally.
You can win on that heart side. So, man, I like that thought process. Ryan, we're getting right up here to the end of the show. The
Yeah,
final
man.
question I wanted to ask you, your three biggest, is I would ask the end of every show. Three biggest: largemouth, smallmouth, spotted bass. If you've caught a spotted bass, you're in Wisconsin there, so I don't know if you guys have many spots, but where you were and what you caught them on, with those personal bests.
Okay. I'll get to the easy one first. I have never caught a spotted bass.
Okay.
I need to. I'm good buddies with Gussie, who I know you guys had on the show, and he's like obsessed with those things. And everybody I know that's caught him loves them. I love smallmouth, so yeah, I need to go do it. I just haven't had the benefit of fishing any really good spotted bass fisheries.
Sure.
It's on my bucket list. You've now put me on the spot, and I had to. It's the first time I've publicly acknowledged that, which is interesting. It makes me feel like I need to make that a priority for 23. So thank you for that motivation.
There you go.
I'm going to make Gussie go get me somewhere and put me on some. So that's the easy one. Smallmouth, biggest one I've ever weighed was like 6'2", and it was on Sturgeon Bay.
Wow.
And this is not going to surprise you that it was on a max scent flatworm.
There you go.
I love fishing up there. Love fishing the Mississippi and Sturgeon Bay for smallmouth. So yeah. And then my biggest largemouth was actually, I was practicing for a tournament on a what for around here a big lake, but in general small body of water called Shauna Lake in Wisconsin. It's up by Green Bay. Back in the day, it was a great punching lake, and you could just go out there and flip a 1 ounce jig and just murder them, find schools. I caught one that on my buddy's scale was just over 7. And
big northern strain.
That's like, that's an absolute Wisconsin toad. They just don't, that's very rare. So, but man, that was like 25 years ago. And since then, I don't think that I've caught one much over 6. Oh, wait, sorry. Actually, I take that back. I did catch one that was just over 9 on El Salto.
Oh my gosh!
So by the way, I don't really count that one because that was in another country, but I forgot about that. That was on a topwater. That was on a Berkeley Chapo. Yeah, it was. Oh my dude, it was one of those. That's an industry trip right there. So that was down there for work, right? And man, what a bucket list deal. Anybody that ever gets a chance to go down there, Billy Chapman's place down there, they take absolute care of you. It's not actually, it's not that expensive in terms of like going to an absolute epic place. If you love bass fishing, one of the writers and I had a day where we caught in one morning, we caught 300 bass, just jacked them. But catching a 9+ fish on a Chapo, watching that big head come up and engulf it was epic. It was so fun. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I love the Berkeley Chapo. I love topwater fishing, and a 9-pounder. I could not imagine engulfing something like that.
Toilet bowl flush, man. Just Grady. It was sick. And we caught a ton on them that day. It was just wild stuff. But yeah, that one I don't count. I forget about that when I talk about my largest largemouth because it's a little different going. Yeah, a little different. But technically, that's my biggest one, and it was super fun.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time out, man, and telling us the story of Gunpowder and everything that you do there.
Yeah, of course.
Can't wait to just see. I love just looking at your guys' website and checking the roster out of who you guys are working with, because it's always something that is just like, man, those are like just top tier brands that I use all of their stuff with. So cool stuff you've got going, Ryan. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving with your family. And can't wait. We'll have to do it again sometime, maybe in the summer or a different time of the year, get a different take.
Yeah, I'd love that. And we'll have to find an excuse to get in a boat. We always say that. It's like the fishing industry. We always meet on podcasts or at trade shows or whatever. So we need to prioritize getting out in the boat with people that we work with. It's
sure.
Yeah, so we'll do it. We'll here's what we'll do. We'll get out there. We'll invite Bailey. We'll tell them, we'll let them watch this podcast where we talk smack, and then we'll see who's right. We'll solve
it. There you go. Or we'll just drag him around in the boat with a kayak on the back.
Yeah.
We'll be like, oh, dude, we got too much room. You can follow us though. We got a 250, but like, we'll see you down the road.
Yeah, we'll see you at the next spot, buddy. Yeah, that's good.
Good stuff. All right, man. Well, have a good rest of your day. Certainly appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
and absolutely, we'll do it again soon.
Okay, thanks, Adam.
Yeah.